What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty P here with another episode of Steelers War. This is going to be a bit different, right? Today has been a very uncanny, strange and mysterious sort of situation, as Mr. Ballin would say on YouTube. I woke up this morning and I'm scrolling through my reels on Instagram, and I'm going to show you a clip of the reel in a minute. And I find out about this player at Eastern Michigan, a guy called Brian Dooley and his mate, Zach. Both players on the Eastern Michigan team. I'm not going to ruin it for you, but I find out about it. And then, funnily enough, my co-host and one of my all-time great Steeler mates in Marky D, who runs Steeler Nation Australia, puts out a video several hours later. Because I was thinking about, I wanted to cover this story for you all on Steelers Touchdown Under. But he puts out a video on Brian Dooley because the name's Dooley, Marky D's membership program over at Steeler Nation Australia. Go sign up to that. It's awesome. It's worth your $5 a month or whatever it is. The Holy Dooley memberships with him. Awesome content, awesome group, Discords, all chats, all the rest of it. Like, just awesome community to be a part of. Worth the money if you're a really big Steel fan. But he covered Dooley because of the name Holy Dooley, because that's a slang term here in Australia, and it was a children's band group like the Wiggles. He covered Brian Dooley from that perspective and how cool it would be for a name on the jersey. But there's a really cool story with Brian Dooley. Brian Dooley is a draft pick and prospect in this year's draft, a guy that's probably going to be a UDFA or a 7th-round draft pick. But I'm going to give him the justice that he deserves to be reviewed and compared like I would any other prospect, because you know what? The bloke's a damn good guy. And here's why. We're going to bring it up for you. This is his coach. This is from College Football on Fox. This is his coach saying what happened this season, before this season started, and the awesome show of character that Brian Dooley did before they even stepped on the field. Let's have a listen. You know?
We're at 85 scholarships. We have 85 given out. And no matter how many times or how many years I go to the NCAA and say, yeah, but man, I'm just telling you, we need 86. The answer is no. You have 85. Until Brian Dooley comes into my office and he said, Coach, that guy has earned it. And I've talked this over with my family and the whole bit. And if there's a way to make this happen, I am willing to give up my scholarship and to give it to Zach Hunt.
Now, that's character. We know that the Steelers draft on character a lot of the time. We know the Steelers draft some players with character questions, and then they try and get the best out of them. AB, George Pickens, all the rest of it. George Pickens, it's working for. AB, it worked for as long as they could. I think CTA involved as well. But when it comes to Brian Dooley, I heard this and I thought, you know what? I usually am really across my prospects. I think most people that are on this channel know that, you know, I'm really keen on my prospects. And I thought, this guy deserves the light of day to be talked about. And I had a look. He's not a bad prospect. So last year, the most amount of snaps played by a tackle, remember the Steelers need a right tackle in this year's draft, was 1,008. If we look at those players that have played at least 50% of those, and you look at the overall grade, Brian Dooley is the 26th best tackle according to PFF. Second best tackle, the 26th best tackle. If you look at the players, that's 50%. If you look at the players that played 80% of the snaps, that changes pretty substantially. Brian Dooley is the 9th best offensive graded tackle. If you look at run blocking, he's a top 7 player. Everyone knows I'm high on Christian Jones. J.C. Latham, a first-round pick, is the 3rd best on this list. Their PFF grade is literally like 6 different, right? Sacks. J.C. Latham led in 2 sacks. Brian Dooley led in 3 sacks, right? You look at pass blocking grade, that is where he's probably a much better run blocker. He does go down the list. He goes back into 25. But if you look at this as well, when I look back to offensive grade, Troy Fatanu is a 75. Brian Dooley's a 73.8. You look at Troy Fatanu, again, this guy's meant to be a first-round lineman. Brian Dooley's there at 7. Fatanu, like, down the bottom of that, right, from a run blocking grade. You know, Jack Nelson is a player that people think will go in the 6th round. He's got lesser grades. So I kind of thought this is kind of interesting. Brian Dooley deserves a second look. Definitely. Like this guy deserves to be understood. Now, I went and had a look. He's played 4,000 snaps. That is huge. That is the most I've seen of any prospect that I've reviewed. When we looked at guys like Graham Barton and Cedric Van Pran, those guys are in like the early 3,000s. He's played 4,000 snaps. So yes, he's played 6 years, but he played the COVID year. He only had 58 snaps in his rookie year, his freshman year anyway, which is barely enough for it to count as a year. He has allowed, and he's majority played at right tackle for all of them. 3,991 snaps at right tackles. He was one of the most experienced right tackles in all of college football last year, definitely in that top percentage. Now, he has allowed 16 sacks in the course of his career. But in the last 3 years, 3, 2, and 3. That's not bad. That is not bad stats when you're playing tackle. Graham Barton's led in 14 sacks in his college career. Yes, he played a better college, but, Brian Dooley, that's not a bad number. Penalties. He actually had one of the really low count in penalties. Some of the other players that we just had up on the screen before as well, they had a lot more in terms of penalties. I'm going to try and pull that up for you while we keep going through Brian Dooley's grades. But it's not bad. And this is a hugely experienced right tackle. And I'm not saying the Steelers need to go and draft this guy in the 5th round. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is if you go or better, but if you can get this guy as a priority UDFA, if you get a really late 7th from different trade back scenarios or trade up scenarios in the draft, or if you want to use one of your picks next year, one of your late picks, Brian Dooley kid could be worth bringing in. He really could be. And I just kind of love the idea that there's this guy out there that, like, he's a really good character. He's not the worst stats, and he plays at a position that the Steelers really need. I can't say enough how, like, excited I was to really see a prospect like this that fits the character, not just the performance on the field. So, yeah, if you look at penalties, right, Javon Foster, a player that's, some people think will be in the top 6 rounds. JC Latham, seven penalties. Troy Fatanu, 6 penalties. That guy's meant to be a first-round pick. Brian Dooley, 5, right? Not too bad. And then I thought, what about another late Steelers tackle that they let develop? And I thought of Chuks Okorafor. Now, Chuks only had 4 years. He only had 1,200 snaps, much, much less. So he had 2,400 snaps, I should say, compared to Brian Dooley. That's fine. That is what it is. It's a lot less. He played 2 years less, technically. He only allowed 5 sacks in his career. So that is better. But in his final year, right, he allowed... we'll go by season. He allowed 2 sacks and 4 sacks. Brian Dooley, 3 sacks and 2 sacks. So Brian Dooley has got better each year. And so I just wanted to give this guy a bit of attention. I wanted to give him the light of day. He's not a prospect you're going to hear many people talk about, but he's a good bloke with great character. Not the worst of the position. I think some draft boards don't even have him in the top 250 players. Some don't have him in the top 350. He's not even considered a top 50 tackle by some people out there. He's a specialist right tackle. That is going to affect your grade at tackle. He probably can't kick in. I haven't watched a deep amount of tape. I barely get a highlight on him on YouTube. He's an untalked about guy. But you know what? Maybe if the NFL had a few more Dooleys and less Rashid Rices out there, it'd be a better time for all. And I just think he probably goes undrafted. Pay him an extra 10 or 20K to bring him into the building. Because this is a guy, like if Jalen Warren can make it and be as effective as he is, Brian Dooley can too at right tackle. You let me know. Would you take a fly? Would you be happy with the Steelers giving this guy an extra 30 or 50 grand as UDFA to bring him in? Would you be happy to try a 7th round on this guy? I just think what goes around comes around. You've got to give back. He gave everything in his college scholarship. He put it on the line for a teammate. That's the kind of attitude that I want to see in the black and gold. We want to see proven performers, of course, as well. If you can get a proven performer, or if you can get someone that can develop, can this be Pat Meyer's project? If Mark Robinson could be a project, these guys are better prospect at his position than Mark Robinson was at his position. Man, I'm taking that flyer in the 7th round. I'm giving back, man. And I'm certainly coming and getting him in UDFA. He freaking deserves it. But that's Brian Dooley. It won't be the last time you hear me mention him. It certainly won't be the last time you hear Marky D mention him on Steelers Nation Australia. It won't be the last time we mention him together because we'll be doing some draft content live together on both channels. So What do you think about Brian Dooley? You let me know in the comments. Have a good weekend, Steel fans. As always, go Steelers.